So we reach the end of the war, and we see with Karna's death that there's this change that comes over Duryodhana. I hope I'm not going to repeat things. Can't remember what I did say and didn't say. So there's this incident now where Kripacharya tells Duryodhana that if you look around, there's literally maybe 5 of them left standing: Duryodhana, Kripacharya, Shalya, Ashwatthama, and somebody by the name of Kritavarma, who are all on the Kaurava side. The Shakuni is also still standing. There's like very few soldiers left. Like from in the thousands they were, and now they literally something like 100 or something left. And so Kripacharya tells him, now at least surrender and let's save these many lives. So many lives have already been lost. You have to remember that Duryodhana has been listening to give this land back to Yudhishthira. Anyways, it's his land, and it's the right thing to do, and don't waste people's lives on this matter. And end the war. He's been listening to this before the war has started, from Vidur, from Bhishmacharya, from even towards the end, Dronacharya said quite a bit, from Vedavyasa, from his parents. His mother had told him this also. One of his brothers had told him also. So like Krishna had told him. So many people had told him. And his reply used to always be very curt, very insulting, very condescending, very... Today, when Kripacharya tells him, end the war, he says, I know you have my best interest at heart, and you speak with my welfare in mind. And even though I appreciate your words and your intentions, I don't think Yudhishthira will ever believe me if I say. And for that reason, I cannot do what you say. Like, so sweet. And this is after Karna dies. Like, not once did he say to Bhishmacharya, I know you have my best interest in heart. All he ever said to Bhishmacharya was, you love them more than me, you're not fighting well enough. Like, you should be just, you are Kshatriya, you said you'd be loyal to the throne, you should keep your promise. Dronacharya also, like, after all that Hastinapur has done, is this how you repay us? You have favoritism. That was usually what he would say. And then suddenly now, this, this incredible maturity, and also like the way he speaks is so considerate and sensitive. Like, there's not, this says, except for Karna, he never spoke with sensitivity to anyone else. Like, not even his own brothers. And so you see this incredible shift that happens in Duryodhana after Karna dies. And it's really interesting what love, the power of love, that it can change a person so significantly. And I've seen this very often, that when we love the person, of course, it changes us and it empowers us, and it did. Loving Karna empowered Duryodhana. He wouldn't have even fought this war if he didn't think Karna stood by him. So loving someone empowers us. But also, I've seen this happen a lot of times also, that when we lose that person, and it's usually to death, if we lose them when they're still alive, they become bitter. But when we lose them to death, then the person improves. They want to be more like the person they love, or they want to be a better person for the person that they lost. And it's just incredible. It's really, really incredible. And so now Duryodhana is on the battlefield and he's watching the Pandavas fight. And now he knows, right? Now he knows that they were his brothers. This is another thing. He held it against Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya that they loved the Pandavas. Like, he kept saying, you love them. And no matter how many times they said, but we love you too, it was like, no, it's a flaw. To love them is a flaw. You can't be mine if you love them. And now he's looking at the Pandavas, knowing that they are Karna's brothers. And he suddenly sees Yudhishthira as noble. And he thinks, really Yudhishthira is worthy of being the king. And then he goes further to say, and Yudhishthira is so noble, he's worthy of being Karna's brother. So his entire mindset has now changed. And he doesn't think Karna loved him. He now knows this. Right? Now Bhishmacharya has told him, he knows this, but he didn't hold it against Karna. It's just incredible what love is. Right? Like he didn't love Bhishmacharya. It was like, you're my grandfather, you should do for me. He didn't love Dronacharya. It was like, you're my guru, you're my teacher, you should do for me. We have this sense of, entitled. Or maybe even before we go into the word entitled, it's that sense of attachment. So I don't love you for you. I love you for what you do for me, which is so often in a family. This happens so much in a family, which is why in Bradhanyaka Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, there's that statement, that very famous statement that says, we only love the other person for our sake. We don't love the person for them. But of course we can, but more often than not, it's, I'm benefiting from it. And so because I love me and because you benefit me, I love you. And this is, you can really see this in Duryodhana's relationships with even Shakuni, right? Because he'll cry. Shakuni is going to die soon. But there's no, not like how when Karna dies. Like when Karna dies, Duryodhana changes. He becomes a nicer person. He starts seeing goodness in other people. You almost think Karna should have died earlier. But, maybe it needed to be the way it is. Well, obviously it needed to be the way it is because a lot of it was karma playing itself out. Okay, so this whole night he has grieved Karna's death, and he's had so many emotions because there's grief of losing a friend, and then there's finding out that Karna was really Kunti's son and that he could have had the kingdom, how much he sacrificed for me. And then there's anger, like, why did you do that for me? This is also an interesting thing about grief. Anger plays quite a huge part in grief. It's interesting where the anger gets directed also. It wasn't directed at Arjuna, which would be your obvious go-to. It's like, why did you do this? Like you could have saved yourself. And this is love. So much love that angry that you sacrificed for me. And also what's beautiful here is absolutely everyone is capable of this kind of love. Like the whole Mahabharata, Duryodhana is such a villain. And now, like, look at the beauty of love. That he's become a nicer person. He's seeing niceness everywhere. And even his anger is directed at, like, why did you do it for me? Like, suddenly he's not selfish. Like, everywhere else, when it was Bhishma Pitama, fight for me. Drona Pitama, it was about, fight for me, do this for me, like me more than you like Arjuna. Suddenly with Karna, it's like, you shouldn't have done this. You should have thought of yourself. And this is the biggest difference. When we talk about love and attachment, this is really the biggest difference between love and attachment. In love, if I don't feature, it's about the other person's welfare. So now the day has to start and they need another commander-in-chief. And this is also interesting because, the entire 18 days of the war, Pandavas had one commander-in-chief, Drishtyadhyumna. And this is now like the fourth commander-in-chief. Bhishma Pitama Drona Acharya. Karna, and now they put Shaila. If you remember, he was the chariot driver. And if you remember, he's Nakula and Sahadev's maternal uncle, Mama. And they even they make him the commander-in-chief, because by it, it's the right thing to do. He's the eldest, he's fought really well, he is very, 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 very skilled. He's a king in his own right. So the war starts. But just before the day starts, this interesting incident happens, and it's one of the fun stories you can do with Balvihar. Let's see if I can do it fun now. So Gandhavri has now lost. Well, every night she would get the report, what was happening at the war and how many sons had died. And so by now, I think she hasn't gotten the count of day 17, because Bhishma Bhim had killed even more on day 17. He pretty much killed all of them except for Duryodhana on day 17. But so she's still thinking from day 16 count, she thinks she still has about 10 sons still, right. And she's, Gandhavri is a very wise woman and very sattvic woman. She knew who Krishna was. She understood that Krishna's powers are there's no point, you have to surrender. She herself had told Duryodhana, what you're doing is wrong, and this will end badly. You're going to lose the kingdom. So many lives are going to go. She was one of the people who tried to stop Duryodhana. She tried to first stop Dhritarashtra from allowing it, and then Dhritarashtra wasn't listening. She told Duryodhana directly. Even at the game of dice, she was one of the ones who was like, "What are you doing?" But unfortunately, they didn't listen. Well, I would like to say it was a sexist world and they didn't listen to her, but he didn't listen to anyone. He didn't listen to Vidur, he didn't listen to anyone. So they just didn't listen. Doesn't matter who was speaking and how wise they were and how much of, knowing that they have your welfare at heart, he wouldn't listen. None of them listened. Dushashan, Shakuni, none of them listened. And it's, even though this is that divide that happens, and Gandhavri is really the perfect example of the divide. What divide am I talking about? Mind and intellect. So Gandhavri represents the intellect that has insights and wisdom, understands virtues, and has even practiced sadhana and upasana and has gained a certain amount of spiritual strength. And so she has knowledge, but she chose to blind herself. So she chose not to completely live it or to acknowledge it, to honor it. And she blinding herself is very symbolic of, because every time she'd see Duryodhana do something, she'd know it was wrong. She should have stopped, and she didn't. Like right from when he was a kid, right from when he was really, really young. He tried to poison Bhim when they were still, 12-ish? She knew. They didn't mention a word. So blind, chose to be blind. She saw, but chose to ignore. She knew, but she didn't act. Sometimes she acted, but because she so often ignored, she didn't have that same power. They didn't listen. Although, to be fair to her, they just didn't listen, like I've already said. But right now, even though she knows that Duryodhana is reaping the results of everything he's done, what he's done is no small act. And this is really karma coming back to him, and he's made this bed. He now has to face it. And she completely understands that, but a mother's heart is a mother's heart. And she thinks, maybe I can save just one son. So because she had chose to be blind, she had collected a lot of mystical powers. And if she removed her blindfold, whatever she looked at would get her power. So she tells her servants to take her to Kurukshetra. She calls Duryodhana into her room. She tells him, go have a bath, go do your prayers, and come to me naked. But of course, before that, there was a lot of crying and consoling, and forgot all the, mother, son. And obviously, this is a time of, she's lost her sons, he's lost her brothers. All of that conversation also happened. And then she gives this instruction. Now, he doesn't know exactly why, but of course, he knows that. And she has said, she does explain to him that I will help your body become impenetrable, is the word that she uses. Because the power of her having sacrificed vision is that his body nothing would be able to pierce, like a pin would not be able to pierce if she looked at him. So he goes out to listen to her instructions. He comes back, and there's an inner room where all the ladies are, and there's an outer room where, you enter and you take off your shoes, whatever. So he strips, and he's about to walk into the inner room, and he's following her instructions. Just as he's about to step in, Krishna steps out of Gandharvi's room. He had heard that she had come, so he came to say, hurry up. But it's interesting what happens now. Was that really what he had come to do? So he's stepping out. Duryodhana is about to step in, and Krishna looks at him and like, why are you naked? And then Duryodhana suddenly gets very self-conscious, and he's like, I'm going to go visit my mother. And Krishna's like, who goes to visit their mother like this? You're not like a small boy that you can go without wearing clothes in front of your mother. You're a grown man. You should cover yourself before you go and see her. And suddenly Duryodhana becomes very self-conscious. And then he says, no, but she told me to come. And then he's like, well, you do what you want to do, but I would at least cover my, And then immediately Duryodhana takes a towel and wraps it around his waist. So he walks in, Gandharva hears him and says, stand here. She removes her blindfold and she looks at him, and she's scanning his whole body, and she had also meditated. And so she's infused with this tapasic energy that she has collected. And as she's looking, when she finishes, she looks at him and she says, why didn't you listen to my instruction? Why have you covered part of your body? Your thighs and your hips now don't have the same protection. And now Duryodhana is like, I was just about to come in and I had taken them off, and then Krishna was there, and Gandharvi takes this huge breath in, and she sighs. And she thinks, Krishna, you're not going to let me save even this son. She knows, huh? She thinks it. She doesn't say it to him, but she already knows. And she remembers the vow. Bhim's vow was he will break Duryodhana's thigh. Where Duryodhana had hit there, when he said to Draupadi, come and sit here, that exact spot where he said he would, he told her to come and sit. Bhim's vow was, that's where I will break, and that's what will kill you. And thanks to Krishna, that was covered. So it can be broken. The rest of Duryodhana can't be touched, because Gandharvi had blindfolded herself for years, more than 100 years. So they lived very long lives in those days, probably something like 300 years. Imagine the amount of tapas from that kind of sacrifice. So what's really cute in this story is Krishna just knows. Like the Pandavas had no idea to the extent which he protected them. So many things he did that Pandavas don't even know, right? Like Arjuna doesn't know, Bhim doesn't know this, Yudhishthira doesn't know this. And so many times in our lives too, the Lord is doing so many things and we don't know. We don't know we're being protected. It's just happening. Like how, like so sometimes when people say, why isn't God? How dare we complain that God's not doing? What's also really beautiful in the story is the minute Duryodhana says he covered himself because of Krishna, and Gandhabri has this divide in her. She knows what's right. She knew Krishna would always be victorious no matter what. She tries to fight it. She tries to be able to say what she knows can't be said. And emotions do get the better of us. We're not always able to accept. But the minute she hears his name, there's this, she lets go. Doesn't mean she doesn't get emotional again. She will get emotional again, but in that moment, and sometimes in our lives we do this too, right? We think we can trick the system or we can get away with something. We can't. And sometimes in our wisdom we think, yeah. Sometimes we're not so wise and we keep trying. So the war starts and Duryodhana actually enters this last day feeling quite empowered because of this incident that he had. He feels his mom's power is with him. I think I've mentioned this before. The amount of strength we get from knowing that our parents are with us, our loved ones are with us. There's just no amount of value we can attribute to that. It's our anchor. Family is so much our anchor. So he goes in there and Shaila is at the head and they all charging in. So now, pausing as they all charging in. On this side of the war, they weren't aware of what happened in the morning. They were all discussing strategy for today. And they had already heard Shaila was going to be the commander-in-chief. And so Yudhishthira tells Krishna, and he pretty much started every day of the war with this. Huh? Like Yudhishthira is consistency is amazing. I think he only got upset that one time. I mean, he got upset many times in sadness, but like angry was when he insulted the Gandhiva. But otherwise, he's very, very consistent. And so he starts the day with saying, Krishna, we will listen to you. Whatever you say, we will do. Now, what's the best strategy? Do you think that with Shaila being the commander-in-chief? And Krishna says Shaila has actually done a lot of tapas as a king. Right? And so no ordinary person can kill him. And Yudhishthira, you're the only one that would match and maybe supersede the amount of tapas he's done. So you have to do it. You have to be the one that kills him today. And then Yudhishthira also remembers before the war started, when Shaila realizes he's been tricked and he has to now be on the Kaurava army, he comes to meet the Pandavas and he tells them, unfortunately, this is the situation, but I do love you, but I'll be true to a Kshatriya and I will fight. And he does, huh? He fights as a Kshatriya should, loyal to the side he belongs to. And then he says, and I know I will die. Don't know if y'all remember this. I don't know if I told you this. I did tell you. He says, I know I will die because I'm going to be on the wrong side. And Yudhishthira, I want it to be you who kills me. And so it kind of now, today a lot of things are coming to full circle. So yeah, we are. And the battle starts and Shaila goes straight to Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira goes straight to Shaila. And they fight. They really fight. This is like not a small battle. I think it goes on for something like 4.5 hours. Huh? This is like a full-on battle. And I'll finish this first, because then while this 4.5 hour, maybe longer battle is going on between Yudhishthira and Shaila, other things are happening, and I'm going to come back to those things, and I'm going to just finish this bit. And usually I don't tell you much about the fighting strategy, except if something's particularly good, because I'm not one about he punched this and he used this arrow. But this bit's really cool. So Shaila, they fighting. Yudhishthira is an amazing warrior at this point. I don't think we give credit to everybody else. We just keep saying Arjuna is a really good warrior, but here you see how good Yudhishthira is. Also, he had beat Karna at one point earlier in the war, so I did mention he must be pretty awesome to have beat Karna at one point. But here, they're fighting. Shaila takes his arrow and he cuts the string of the bow off Yudhishthira's arrow. So basically, now Yudhishthira cannot use his bow and arrow. So Yudhishthira does this full-on matrix-like turn, picks up another bow and arrow and comes back within 2 seconds and shoots Shaila's arrow and armor off at the same time. So I was like, wow, who knew the show was so cool? You just hear him talking about dharma all the time. Who knew he could do a matrix move like this? like super speed, like turn around, like one bow and arrow's gone, next moment the other bow and arrow, and he shot it, successfully aiming and succeeded in disarming Shaila. And then unfortunately Shaila has to die. And even though he fought really well, and this is so beautiful because Shaila is one of those people true to dharma. If he's fighting as a Kshatriya, he will fight 100%. And doesn't matter he's fighting Yudhishthira, who he loves. Doesn't matter he knows that he's going to die. He gave 100%. And there's not even a moment of backing down or giving up, right? He's 100% there. And it's like they staring at each other, death stares. So much description was given about the way they're staring at each other. There's like the romance description of people looking at each other, and then today in the day 18 of the war, there's this death stare competition going on between all the warriors in the battlefield. No. But finally, a lot of people come to intervene. Shaila's brother comes to intervene. Yudhishthira successfully defeats him. Kripacharya comes, Ashwatthama comes, Duryodhana also comes, and then it becomes a little bit of everybody is just involved in this one fight. And at one point, so chariots have been destroyed 3-4 times. I'm not going to go into it too much, but at one point, Yudhishthira's chariot is destroyed by Shaila, and Bhim, Nakula and Sahadev all come to save Yudhishthira. At that point, Bhim is the one that destroys Shaila's bow and arrow and his arm. And so Shaila is now without armor, without weapon, without chariot. Yudhishthira is also without armor, he has his weapon, without chariot. He has his chariot, but he doesn't have horses, so he doesn't have a chariot. And again, very matrix, very dramatic. He takes the arrow, he holds it in place, he looks at Shaila and he says, "You dead." I was like, okay, this is a new Yudhishthira that we see on the last day of the battlefield. He shoots it, and yes, Shaila is killed on the spot with the weapon. But what's really beautiful, so many heroes in the Mahabharata who are unsung, very, what's that word? Unsung heroes? Shaila had done so much tapas and was such a righteous king that the earth doesn't let him fall. The earth raises to catch him. There's so many small incidences like this in the Mahabharata. And we don't even like Shaila, we just know because he is Nakula and Sahadev's uncle. We don't, but imagine the earth And literally the wording in the Mahabharata is, as a mother embraces her child, Mother Earth took him back into her fold. What a wonderful life he must have lived, huh? Like so often we focus on the death being a horrible thing. But here, really in China's life, for the earth to do that, to receive him, what a wonderful life he would have had to have lived. Such a nice way to go then. Because he lived a good life. Then the going doesn't matter. He lived well. So, okay. So I think that was one of the last people who really deserves our praise. After this, it's not so many people that we will feel so sad about that they died. Yeah, but beautiful people like that, we want them to live. Okay, so again, we see this superhero warrior in Yudhishthira on the last day, or maybe it just didn't get described as much because so many battles were going on in previous days, and now that it's tampered down, you get to focus a little bit more on the battles. We also see Nakula in action with phenomenal skills, and he's destroying a significant amount of the remaining Maharathis. So Karna's sons were still alive and they were still Maharathis. Then we also see that Ashwatthama, I don't know if y'all remember this, Ashwatthama, when his father died, Drona died, he was going to leave the battlefield and he meets Vedavyasa, and Vedavyasa talks to him and he says, Pandavas are going to win, but you have to do your best, and, don't think you can defeat Arjuna. It's not possible. And what does Ashwatthama do? Challenge Arjuna. Sometimes we know the person is wise, we know what they're saying is going to be for our benefit, and we still don't listen. This doesn't go well because Ashwatthama, and maybe there's a little bit of rivalry in Ashwatthama's heart for Arjuna because he knew his father loved Arjuna. Although Ashwatthama also loved Arjuna, like a brother. Somebody who loved his father as much as he loved him. There was a lot of love too, but suddenly now there's this delusion is an interesting thing. This loyalty to the Duryodhana. And because they got accused so much of loving the Pandavas, it's almost like they themselves forgot that they love the Pandavas. But Arjuna, amazing, even though Ashwatthama has challenged him. On this last day of the war, Arjuna has defeated the Trigathas, the Shakunis, mountain warriors, and the Madrakas. Now, you might think those are people. No, the entire armies. So the entire army that Shakuni brought to fight, Arjuna has killed. And then the Madrakas is Shaila's entire army that he brought from Madras, Arjuna has destroyed. And the Trigathas are also an entire army. So Arjuna was busy, but he was also fighting Ashwatthama on the side. This is why we praise Arjuna so much. Like Yudhishthira did one cool move, And at this point, when Shaila falls, Shakuni goes to Duryodhana, says, we need to regroup because that was the commander in chief, right? So now we need a strategy. And this is a very interesting look that Duryodhana now gives to Shakuni. Almost like he suddenly realizes. It's almost like Duryodhana finally realizes. This was all you, wasn't it? You always the one coming and whispering in my ear what to do. And maybe he didn't realize it because Karna always backed it up, but now Karna's not there. And Karna would Whatever Shakuni said, Karna would back up. And Shakuni didn't have anyone's interested heart. Like nobody's interested heart, Shakuni. He was there for vengeance and vengeance alone, which he accomplishes. So we'll get to that point. But anyway, they collect the army and they, interestingly, most warriors in the Kaurava army are now running away. They literally going back to their tents, packing their bags, and running away. Like so many soldiers on the Kaurava army. And then when the Pandava army is charging, the Kaurava army is looking and saying, yeah, this is not worth it. And they're running away. So Duryodhana at one point tells Shakuni that my throat is sore from screaming, don't run away. Like we have nobody left, what do you want me to do? And then, but they do regroup and they go and then, so we have Bhim now challenging Duryodhana, Satyaki challenging Kritavarma, Drishtadyumnu challenging Ashwatthama and Kripacharya, and Sahadev says, Shakuni, it is time. So if you remember the vow, Bhim vowed to kill all the Thrashtra sons. Arjuna vowed to kill Karna. Done. Sahadev vowed to kill Shakuni and his son. So Sahadev is now single pointed. I will fulfill my vow today. In fact, I will fulfill my vow now. And he is, again, phenomenal as a warrior. And Shakuni is not really even standing a chance. And suddenly, when Shakuni went to Duryodhana and said, we have to regroup, after Duryodhana did that look, Duryodhana says to Shakuni, every moment I remember Vidur's words. Everything he has said, everything he had said has come true. And so it would be Shakuni saying, do this, Vidur saying, don't do it. Shakuni saying, do this, Vidur saying, don't do it. And Shakuni was there when Vidur was saying, don't do it. And so that's why I said that look of his was that realization that you did. Because every single time Vidur would say, that's a bad idea and why it's a bad idea. And you are going to face so much pain and suffering. You're going to destroy so many lives. You are going to ruin the Kuru dynasty. And so Vidur had also told Shakuni that you think you are getting what you want, but you will not be able to escape the sorrow that you have caused everybody else. So Sahadev is fighting. Shakuni's son Ulaka comes to help Shakuni because his chariots destroyed, his weapons are destroyed. He's running away. Shakuni is trying to run away. Sahadev is chasing, saying, you're not going anywhere. Usually when they run away, the warriors would let them run away. Like this has been happening all the days of the war. It's not the first time they're running away, but this time Sahadev was like, no, you're not going anywhere. Today, this ends. So Ulaka comes to save his father, and they think 2 against Sahadev will be okay. Sahadev is brutal, sends an arrow and cuts up Ulaka's head. And Shakuni is watching this and the pain he feels. And then suddenly the flash of Vidur's words that you will not be able to escape the sorrow you have caused for this. And then he thinks, how did this all start? Bhishma asked for Gandhavri's hand in marriage. Gandhavri is his sister. And Shakuni was furious that his sister had to marry a blind man. And there and then he decided he would destroy the entire Kuru race. So all the Kauravas pretty much will be destroyed by the end of today. But a lot of the Pandavas are too. And then again and again and again and again, Vidur kept telling him, you won't be able to touch the Pandavas. And now he's seeing it. He's seeing that all 5 Pandavas are standing unscratched. Well, few scratches here there. Hale and hearty still. And all Kauravas, all the sons of the Kauravas, Duryodhana's sons, his sons, Dushashan's sons. And Karna had like 5, all killed in front of their eyes. Huh? How much pain to see all of that. And then for a moment he thinks, why did I do it? See, and this is a great thing. So he tries to run away. And even when Duryodhana has to face crunch time, Duryodhana runs away. We may not get to Duryodhana, but this is an interesting thing. Just now we saw Shaila. He fought fearless, died glorious. And we see Shakuni now. He's running away. And he's scared of it. When we've lived well, there's nothing to be scared of. Shakuni didn't live well. He has a lot to be scared of. And so try to run away, but you can't. You cannot run away from your karma. It will find you. Will catch, definitely catches up. It's the law. And so you see this huge difference in the way Shakuni dies and Shaila dies. There's doubt in his mind about the way he's lived his life. There's sorrow in his heart. And there's so much fear. So much fear. And Sahadev, similar to Yudhishthira, when he pulls that last arrow, there's zero mercy. In fact, what Sahadev says is, for the pain and insult you caused to our Lord. For the pain and insult you caused to Yudhishthira. And shoots. So even with Sahadev, like, even though it's a very violent, ferocious act, there's no turbulence. It's very clear, it's very strong. Sure, there's anger. But after what? 14 years, 13 years? Sahadev isn't the type of person that allowed it to fester. Sahadev was one of the most calm, most quiet, most gentle people you would know. He, similar in today's world, he'd be a vet. He looked after horses. Cows, horses. Nakula looked after the cows. So they looked after horses. Or vice versa. They're gentle animals. And he was so gentle with them. Extremely patient. Not the kind of person that festers anger. So now, Shakuni is dead. And Duryodhana looks around. Now the only people left is Ashwatthama, Kripacharya, and Kripavarna. And he thinks, this is bad. So what does he do? He runs away. He just keeps running and running and running. he reaches a lake. Like his mom, and he had gotten a lot of those mystical powers, he jumps into the lake. He's able to hold his breath underwater. But makes this kind of a bubble around him. And he freezes the lake. So he's inside the lake, in a bubble, and he's frozen the lake. Hiding. Nobody can find him. Nobody can reach him. Nobody will know he's there. Except that in India, lakes don't freeze. But so if you think about it a little bit, you'll know it's him. But otherwise, most people wouldn't occur that, they'll just walk past thinking frozen lakes, nothing else. You wouldn't think Duryodhana is hiding at the bottom. Hiding. So, Ashwatthama, Kripacharya, and them, they're looking at the army that's left, like literally hardly anyone's left, and they all packing their bags and they're all leaving. And they have no leader to hold them together. Even the ones who want to do something and to stand by their leader, there's no leader there. And there's just so much grief and disarray in the Kaurava side. And they were like, where's Yodhana? Like he should be here. This whole war was supposed to be for him. So they go looking for him. The Pandavas are obviously looking for him because and Krishna says very clearly, until Duryodhana is defeated, this war is not over. So now nobody knows where he is. So Vedavyasa comes. And he tells Ashwatthama and Kripacharya exactly where Duryodhana is. And says, go and talk to him. So they go and talk to him. And they say, don't be a coward. Don't hide like this. And he says, I'm not being a coward. I'm just tired. I'm resting. Really, like this? At the bottom of a lake that you're frozen, you need to rest like this. And there's this whole conversation back and forth between Kripacharya and Ashwatthama and Duryodhana, who's in the middle of the lake, who's having the conversation while he's inside the lake, saying, no, I'm just resting. I'll come fight tomorrow. And they like, this is really not the way to behave. Like thousands of people have died because of you. You cannot run away. And we still standing. And he's like, I'm so happy you're still alive. But I really need to rest. I'm not even exaggerating. This is literally what he said. While all this is happening, some hunters had come to the lake to fill their water bottles and to freshen up. And they hear this conversation and they realize Duryodhana is hiding in the lake. And then they are very entrepreneurial. So they think if we go tell Yudhishthira where Duryodhana is, we'll get a nice reward. So off they go. And they go report to Yudhishthira where Duryodhana is. And so Krishna says, let's go. And the Pandavas and Krishna walk to the lake. What happens next? Y'all already know, but we shall see next week. Any questions? So fascinating, the Mahabharata. Yeah.
Was it allowed to change sides?
Like, were they allowed to change sides on the first day of the Yeah. What was his name? I forget his name. One of the brothers.
Just in terms of the army, not like when they just the soldiers.
Yeah, yeah, anyone was allowed to change sides. On the first day of the battle, you were allowed to change sides. There was an announcement, you know, like in weddings, now or whatever, hold your peace. Well, in Christian weddings, the weddings don't have that. And then it's a Hollywood movie, somebody speaks. No, there's a bit before the war starts where you're given a chance. If you feel you're on the wrong side, switch sides. What's his name? Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu. Change your sides. Very cool. Again, another unsung hero.
One of the brother,
Mm,
one of the 100.
No, yes,
This is the main son.
yeah. He was a Kaurava. He wasn't one of the 100 brothers, but there was one of the 100 brothers. What was his name? But he didn't get to change sides. He spoke up against Duryodhana at the game of dice, and he spoke up even before the war, tried to make Duryodhana stop. But he didn't change sides. Only Yuyutsu changed sides. Yeah, Yuyutsu was somehow related. Sometimes it's hard to keep track. Even I forgot Karna had so many sons until so many died today.
Shakuni is.
But Shakuni's legend.
So he didn't care about, essentially he was wanting to kill his own sisters.
Lineage. He wanted to kill their own sisters.
And
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure I'm understanding that.
Yeah, you understood that right. Even though he was angry that his sister was married to a blind man, he killed all his sister's sons. Yeah. There was also that story where his 99 brothers were killed by the thrush. Shakuni. So yeah, it's in Gandhavri's lineage where they have 100 kids. So Gandhavri's mom also had 100 kids. Yeah.
Did you ever feel any remorse?
Shakuni, like I said, the moment before he dies, he feels a little bit. I think it's more sadness and fear than remorse, is the sense I got. But there is that moment of, was it worth it? So I don't know if it's remorse or wisdom.
Because in the end, his lineage dies.
His lineage died. He was the last. And his kids would have lived, his lineage would have lived. Yeah, his kids all died in war. No, only one son. He had only one son. In trying to kill the Kuru lineage, he kills his own. But the Kuru lineage lives. King Parikshit. Arjuna's grandchild lives. That too, it's because of Krishna. And Vidur had said that. Vidur had said that only what Krishna wants will happen. And those were the words that kept coming back to Shakuni. And Vidur had said so many wise things. Vidur had said, I didn't bring the book. Vidur had said so much about the feeling of vengeance and what it will bring to you, and how empty your life is if you live this way. Vidur had said so much about causing sorrow to others will not bring you joy. I don't know if I had spoken so much about what Vidur said when I did those classes, because I think there was just so much content to get through. But Vidur was, when Krishna leaves this earth, his last message is to Vidur. His last teachings is to Vidur. He teaches it to Uddhav and tells Uddhav, go teach this to Vidur. Vidur is also in Amsha of Yamraj. So a lot of what Vidur says is just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
So Vidur knew about Shakuni's desires for vengeance and why.
Vidur knew everything.
He was,
Vidur is like Vedavyasa. He knew everything. He knew who Krishna was. He knew what was going to happen. He knew why it was happening. But Vedavyasa didn't try to stop him. Vidur constantly tried to talk sense into him. Constant. Main person he tried to talk sense to is the Thrashtra. But Vidur was successful in protecting the Pandavas. Without Vidur's protection, Pandavas would have gone through far more difficulty. They wouldn't have been defeated. They would have had to face, already they faced a lot of difficulties. They would have had to face even. So Vidur is a bit like Krishna, constantly protecting the Pandavas, trying to educate the Kauravas. We can always try. We must try. You never know. One Ullaka is there. Gandhavri is there. Karnas was there. Next life. We didn't get through to them this life, but what we said will bear fruit next life. No, I'm not joking. Sometimes the satsang we receive in this life doesn't quite help us this life. Because vasana pressure is too strong. But everything we learn this life will bear fruit next life. Hopefully it bears fruit this life itself, but it's never wasted. Satsang is never ever wasted. So we have to keep trying. Vidur definitely did. No, Vidur left. The moment Krishna came, showed Vishwarupa Darshan in the court, and Duryodhana said, no, I'm still going to fight. Vidur said, I cannot watch. So he went on a Tirtha Yatra. So he's sitting on the banks of Gangaji while this war is happening. He's in Varanasi, right? Somewhere. Sitting on the banks of Gangaji doing tapas. And that's why Krishna sends in the message. No, that time he comes back, he goes, and lots happens. You will get to it. But pretty much from that day onwards, he stayed in the forest. He never came back to. Yeah, Krishna gave Vishwarupa Darshan to Duryodhana, Dashashan, Shakuni, Karna, the Thrashtra. Yep, even before he gave Vishwarupa Darshan to Arjuna. And it was like, see it. He showed them all who he was. And he said, do not fight me. They tried to put him in jail. Delusion, I tell you, is such a strong thing. Such a strong thing. Like, really, let us pray never that to get so deluded. Because of course, once you are, you are. then no matter how much people are shaking you, you're just deluded. And sometimes the other people have to just take a deep breath and wait. And that's what you have to do. It's so strong, delusion. The only thing that's stronger is love. Only way to protect ourselves from delusion is love. That too, choose well who you love. Otherwise, that only causes delusion. So please choose Krishna, okay? I'm being very specific. Love Krishna. Choose Krishna. The war didn't finish today. No, we want the water.
But then everything that goes.
No, there's still quite a bit. There's still that many pages. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve ma kaschit dukhabhag bhave, asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamidam Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamivavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Hari